And so we're very lucky this year in this theme of being able to bring value to you to have Joel Rose, who's the president of Joel A. Rose and Associates out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So nice to have a Yankee down here in the South. Joel's firm is a national firm that consults on many topics, including law firm management and organization, strategic and financial planning, compensation, feasibility of mergers. Joel is going to talk to us today about how law firms can create value through better sort of management practices. He's also going to talk to you about sort of your role in the firm and how you can sort of create value for your firm. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this topic. And so without further ado, Joel, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Mike. I'm delighted to be with you this morning. I was very happy, very pleased when I was greeted by several administrators and accounting managers who are attending this meeting for whose firms we have worked over the last several years. So it was really a real pleasure for me to be here today. Most law firms that employ administrators, directors of administration, financial managers, have learned that in order for an administrator to provide true value to their firm, the administrator must prove their worth and their value to the firm. And typically, this is not something that occurs overnight. It is something that has to be earned through job performance over time. The great majority of law firm administrative managers understand that they constantly have to prove themselves to the partners. Even if someone has been with the law firm for 10 years, 15 years, there is a constant proving process. The reason that you have that proving process is because you have different partners assuming various managerial positions within the firm. And lawyers like to test any of their administrators before they delegate a sufficient amount of authority and decision-making power to them. So therefore, we are constantly being evaluated. We are constantly being tested. And as a result of this situation, this challenge that we all have to face, I've been asked to describe the approaches followed by the more successful executive directors, administrators, and financial managers in law firms to establish their credibility and to retain that credibility among partners, to allow these administrators to earn the trust, the respect, and the confidence of their managing partners, members of executive committees, and other key members of the law firm, in order for these partners to be willing to delegate the needed authority and decision-making power to administrators. I will do that. But first, let me mention to you that I am not a theorist who makes a living writing books and articles about law firm management and economics. I am a management consultant. I have devoted 48 years of my life to recommending to managing partners and members of management committees and executive committees strategies for improving their firm's economics and management processes. And the guidelines that I will share with you today have evolved as the result of my having consulted with hundreds of law firms, including managing partners, speaking with directors of administration, accounting managers, executive directors, about their roles, their authority and responsibility, their job performance, and the professional and technical skills, as well as their personal characteristics that need to be possessed by administrators in order to satisfy partners' expectations and also the firm's needs and requirements. As the result of my many years of consulting to law firms, I have come to the conclusion that in many of the more enlightened law firms of all sizes and specialties, partners who are in managerial positions have come sensitized to three facts of life about their roles in firm management. First, partners in most firms lack the desire as well as the skill to manage effectively and profitably. Second, these partners must devote more of their time, effort, and energy than they anticipated to establish and implement policies and management principles and to communicate with other attorneys about issues and decisions and to ensure the firm's continued professional, economic, and organizational success. And third, this is where you come into play. The great majority of the more enlightened managing partners and members of executive committees recognize the value of employing professional law firm administrators and administrative managers to bring to their firms a much higher level of acumen about financial analysis and management reporting, human resources management, technological know-how, organizational skills, marketing and practice development know-how, facilities management, and the great variety of other administrative functions that are assumed or delegated to administrative managers. It's been my experience that the more successful administrators understand their role, their authority, and responsibility vis-a-vis partners' expectations. But the challenge is that these expectations are different in the eyes of a great many of the partners. Not every partner, as you know, has the same objectives or the same expectations of their law firm or their administrators. And I think that even though a law firm may be in existence for a great many years, as firms evolve, as younger partners move into mid-level partner positions, as mid-level partners move into senior partner positions, as client base changes, as the attitudes of partners change, so do the expectations of administrators by these attorney-lawyer managers. So therefore, it becomes very important for administrators to really understand their role, authority, and responsibility vis-a-vis the partners they are serving. Now, it's very easy for me to articulate this, but it's very difficult for law firm administrators to actually be sensitized to some of these challenges, because there are changes that occur even if that we may not be aware of within ourselves as well as external changes. And I think that it behooves each of us to make sure that if we intend to continue to add value to our clients being the managing partner, members of executive committees, and the firm generally, that we have to be very sensitive to what these changes are and how these changes are coming about and what needs to be done for the firm. I think it's of critical importance for administrators to understand their firm's current and evolving cultures, and that the administrators are capable of integrating their behaviors into them. Now, what we've been experiencing over the last decade is something of quite an interesting challenge. The challenge being that there are a great many generational changes occurring, not just within the legal profession, but in society. We have the senior partners who are some of the older members of the firm. We have individuals who are the baby boomers. We have the generational X's. We have the millenniums. And in a great many law firms, we have 2 and 3 generational issues competing with each other. And I think that it becomes a challenge for administrators and administrative managers to recognize these and to be able to balance these differences so that they are able to provide the types of services and anticipate the needs of partners and the needs that the firm has. And if you think about this, it is a major challenge. I think that it becomes particularly important for administrators and administrative managers to be able to possess the capability of acclimating their management styles to complement and supplement the formal and informal organizational relationships among the partners, associates, the support staffs, and about those issues which will influence the substantive and business sides of the practice. As I said earlier, you have associates who progress into junior partner status, and then you have junior partners who progress into mid-level partners, and ultimately the mid-level partners who move into senior partner positions. There are differences in client base. There are differences in power structures within the law firm. Which partners have now become more influential? Which partners have inherited certain clients that give them greater decision-making power within the firm? And I think it becomes very important for administrators to be particularly aware of this and to dig down to find out what is it that makes these partners special, and also what is it that they are expecting from the administrators. There are a great many law firms that I work with that have excellent administrators. But partners tell me that these administrators are very good, but basically they're doing the same thing that they've done for the last 5 or 10 years. That many of them have not progressed. They've not kept pace with certain of the things that go on within the firm and within the profession, particularly as it relates to the financial and technological aspects, focusing more on the business side as well as the substantive side of the practice. And even though many of the managing partners may not convey this message to these administrators, these are the feelings that prevail. And to the extent that you have newer partners moving into administrative positions, decision-making positions, it becomes especially important for administrative managers to be sensitized as to what it is that these new thinking partners are expecting from their administrator. And a great many of the administrators with whom I speak, they don't think about it that way. They know what they have to do, they know what they've done for many years, and they continue doing these things and acting in this way. But behind closed doors, there are many times when managing partners and members of management committees discuss with me issues that have occurred where they felt that their administrators have not followed through to the extent that they should have. For example, a few weeks ago, following a strategic planning retreat that I planned and facilitated for one of our clients, one of the administrative members of the administrative committee came up to me and said to me, "You know, Joel, we have an administrator who's been very loyal to us. He's been here for about 12 or 13 years, but we feel that he's slipping. He's a wonderful person. Everybody trusts him, but we have to remind him to do certain things. He doesn't follow up as closely or as quickly as he used to. He's not as responsive to the various levels of partners within the firm as he was." And when I speak with these administrative managers, they think that everything is going along reasonably well. They don't think about these things because they feel they've been doing the same thing for several years and it's worked, so therefore, if it's not broke, why fix it? I think that it is of critical importance for administrators who are career administrators within the legal profession to be able to possess those intuitive personal characteristics and learn professional technical skills that enable them to perform their roles and to satisfy the partner's objectives. And as I said, it becomes very important for us to be sensitive about ourselves on whether or not we are keeping pace in terms of not only the technical skills or the financial reporting skills that we have to have, but the interpersonal skills that we possess. And we'll talk about some of these a little later on in my presentation. I think that it becomes absolutely critical for administrators to possess excellent interpersonal communications skills, both verbal and writing, and be able to communicate with different partners on various levels. Because as you know, partners in law firms can be as different as fingers on your hand. And the way you can communicate with one person may be completely different than how you communicate with a second partner. And it becomes, it is imperative for an administrator to be a successful administrator, for this individual to be able to communicate effectively to various partners at their level, rather than just giving out a one-size-fits-all type of a report. One of the things that we discussed while we were having breakfast this morning, we were talking about some of the changes that have occurred as the result of technology. We used email as one example. Email is an absolutely fabulous way of communicating, but it has advantages and it also has disadvantages. We have a client that recently retained a consulting group to educate their partners, associates, and administrative staff about the courtesies of communicating using email. As you all know, email is a very one-dimensional way of communicating. You can communicate and convey your message very effectively, in a very time-effective manner. However, it is one-dimensional. If someone were to respond to an email that you sent, it could be very terse. If that person was standing in your doorway and said the same thing, you would be able to see their facial expressions, you would hear the different intonation in their voice, you would be able to read their body language, and the message comes out one way. If you are looking strictly at an email transmission, being one-dimensional, you may be offended by this. And this is something that becomes very sensitive in law firms, how you communicate, how you respond, how partners ask you, how you respond to partners or associates, and just what the process is and what it should be. So we have to be sensitive to this, a lot more than many of us realize. I think that a great many administrators would attest to the fact that they must be capable of performing and managing multiple activities in an effective and cost-efficient manner. The two challenges to this managing these various activities, especially with technology that we have in our offices, is ensuring that the responses that we provide would be accurate, complete, and timely. And in a great many situations, partners are expecting instantaneous responses. And some of these responses cannot be given instantly. But it's the manner in which the administrator is able to convey this information and get back to that partner and communicate with them would allow them to understand that their questions will be responded to. I think that it also is inherent upon all of our administrators and administrative managers to be able to relate on a very personal level to these managing partners and members of executive committees, as well as of the other partners and the staff members, so that we are able to respond to their questions and provide whatever services we have to in a manner without offending them, or with the idea being that we are giving them quality service in a timely way. I firmly believe that an administrator's ability to successfully implement all of these conclusions that I have just provided over an extended period of time is as challenging as the most sophisticated legal problem that a client may retain the firm to resolve. I think that in order for an administrator to be able to provide the consistent responses in an accurate, in a timely manner, so that partners understand what the responses are, this is a very challenging situation. And unless you have had experience working in law offices, it's difficult for an outside person to understand what this means. This is a reason why it becomes very difficult, oftentimes, for someone who is an executive in a corporation to move into a private law firm as an executive director or director of administration and find that the corporate culture that individual had been accustomed to is much different than the organizational culture within a law firm. I believe that an administrator's success will have a direct correlation to his or her level of acceptance by the partners, organizationally, personally, and the administrator's ability to deliver and perform the job that he or she has been employed to perform. I think that this acceptance by partners varies over time depending upon the firm's evolving leadership, the financial position of the firm, and the changing client base. Obviously, we have to service the partners. We have to assist the partners do whatever is necessary for the partners to serve their clients. And to the extent that we are able to relieve managing partners or members of executive committees or other members of the firm who have administrative functions, to the extent that we can relieve them of much of the day-to-day administrative activity, this is fine. However, the willingness that we have to do these things is not based solely upon our desire to do this, because there are a great many factors that enter into the acceptance of an administrator by partners that we really exercise little or no control over. For example, an administrator with a type A personality may not succeed in a firm characterized by partners who have a very low-key and who may be more laid back than most. Now, you might say, well, how does that affect this? Well, if we've had a very good working relationship with a managing partner over the last 5 years, and this person, we were able to relate on a personal level to this individual, and he was able to relate to the administrator in the same positive manner, and now we have a new managing partner, or we have a new management committee, and the members of this committee are much different in terms of their personalities, then it could be very difficult for a type A personality to relate with much comfort, with much ease, to this new group that has come in. And this becomes a major challenge for an administrator. I think a managing partner or management committee must be willing to embrace change and to be willing to empower their administrator to do what is necessary. Now, there are many partners in law firms who are not interested in making change. If it worked well for the last 15 years, let it continue working now. Why should we make any changes? Even though the world surrounding the law firm is changing. And this can become a very daunting experience for a law firm administrator. I think the managing partner or the management committee must support the administrator's efforts to use tools such as Juris to improve the firm's efficiency and profitability. However, we can try to be as persuasive as possible. But unless the lawyer management is willing to invest the time and invest the money and make these changes, it can be a real problem for us. And it can be terribly frustrating. Even though what the partners might want us to do would be facilitated greatly by introducing the types of management tools that Juris would provide. But this becomes a challenge for the administrator, and how to handle this and how to acclimate to this, this becomes very difficult. I think that a managing partner and members of management committees must be willing to stand by and support their administrator in enforcement of new policies and procedures. If you have a strong managing partner who is willing to support you, that's fine. But if you have a weak sister, somebody who is always trying to build consensus and trying to gain the accord of a great many of the other partners, and unwilling to take a strong stand on supporting the administrator can have experience a lot of frustration. I think it's also important for the managing partner and members of management committee to lead by example, to the extent that the managing partner is willing to entrust the administrator to make certain decisions and to have certain decision-making power becomes all important. And unless the managing partner is willing to do this, then it becomes very difficult for the administrator to expect other partners to do this. So what is it that an administrator can do? What should an administrator be doing to try to acclimate himself or herself to the firm so that there can be greater trust, greater authority delegated, and greater decision-making powers given to this administrator? Well, I think that it becomes absolutely imperative for the administrator to be able to understand the firm's priorities, as well as the priorities of the managing partner, members of the executive committee, and of key partners within the firm. I think that if the administrator is able to understand these values and what it is that these partners are desiring the firm to aspire to, then the administrator has a much greater opportunity to succeed. I know from my consultations with hundreds of law firms across the country over all of these years that I've been a management consultant, I know from discussions with managing partners, these partners value those administrators who understand and are able to relate to the firm's immediate and long-term priorities. I think that this is a very sensitive issue because a great many of the priorities that firms have to deal with are well beyond the scope of the authority or decision-making power of an administrator. But I think that a well-trained and a well-intentioned administrator with the proper management tools would be able to point out and identify a great number of priorities, issues that the management committee and the firm will have to deal with over the immediate and longer term future. I think that partners value those administrators who have the capacity to successfully synthesize the attorneys and support staffs and firm technology so that the administrator can bring together all of these factors that are contributing to make the firm a very successful organization. I think that the willingness of partners to go along and accept the administrator's recommendations and suggestions become all the more important based upon how that administrator is accepted within the law firm. I think that a successful administrator is one who perceives the firm from a partner's perspective, not from an employee's point of view. I wish I had a $5 bill in my pocket right now for all the times that I've heard partners say to me, I wish our administrator would think more like a partner rather than an employee. I would like that administrator to really think through many of the recommendations or to think through what our needs are and then to come up with some suggested solutions. I would like that administrator to find out what are other firms doing? How are they handling these situations? And then these administrators come to the management committee and discuss these various issues and these solutions with them. This is one of the great advantages of having a user convention such as this, where you have the opportunity to not only attend these programs, but to share experiences with administrators, to network, so that at the end of the day, once you go back to your respective offices, if you have a problem, you have a question, you can call one of your colleagues to find out, well, how did you handle that? Or does the system handle this? This, to me, is one of the great benefits of attending a type of meeting where you have the chance to network as this is. I think that partners value administrators who are innovative and willing to question the status quo so as to suggest alternative approaches within their firm's culture for enhancing productivity and profitability on the substantive as well as on the business side. I think that if you go to these various conventions and you have various meetings with other administrators, other financial managers, you have an opportunity to share experiences. What are you doing? What are some of the experiences that you have had? What are some of the new innovations that you're thinking about? And then once you get these ideas, be willing to make some recommendations to your management committee, to the managing partner, after you've thought through the alternatives. Now, it's easy for me to tell you to do this. And I'm sure that many administrators do this, but I'm also sure, based upon my practical experience, that a great many administrators don't. For example, in most every law firm, administrators and financial managers are expected to prepare a financial reporting process, or at least financial reports, for the managing partners to review, and then ultimately for the partners. And what happens in a great many firms is that the administrators prepare these reports, they get the reports from the various systems that they have, and they bring to they have delivered to the partner's office an inch-thick package of financial data and management information. And then it's up to each of these partners to thumb through these and to look at this and see what the status is of the firm's financial position. Well, my feeling is that that is not what the administrator should be doing in terms of providing the financial data and management information to the firm. We've been called upon by a great many law firms over the years to prepare what we consider to be a financial profile of their firm in comparison to the financial profiles of other law firms in comparable markets of firm sizes and types. And we look at information such as the fees, expenses, the net income available for partners, the whole gamut of reporting process that you are able to obtain through the Juris system. But I think that rather than just placing this information as part of this 1-inch thick package, I think that it's appropriate for the administrator to provide an executive summary that will summarize and it will highlight not only what the data says, but the reasons why the data is what it is. If we see that we have a decline in cash flow, well, rather than just highlighting that we've had this decline in cash flow, I think that we ought to have some explanation. Why is it? Have the number of billable hours that we're recording, has that been reduced? Have our accounts receivables increased? Have we decreased the amount of billed hours that we're billing out? What are the factors that are contributing to this? Have we spent a lot of money on certain processes that we've invested in? What is it what's causing this? And I really believe that it is inherent upon each of the administrators and financial managers not only to provide the reports to management, but to point out reasons why this has been occurring. And to my way of thinking, if an administrator is able to do this, then the administrator is adding tremendous value to the firm, because the managing partners will then be able to direct his or her priorities on dealing with issues that will benefit the law firm. Last night at the reception, I met the financial manager of one of our clients we've recently done a strategic planning retreat for. And this individual said to me, you know, Joel, since that retreat, I've been working very diligently in getting out a lot more bills and following up, because we did one of these comparative financial analyses for this firm. And we showed where this firm's financial position compares with other law firms. And I think that using this information and providing this information the way in which I'm describing is something that would be very beneficial to the firm. And I think that you're very fortunate to be able to use the Juris power packs to obtain this kind of information, because you are able, using the power packs, you are able to obtain the type of multi-year comparative analysis that we prepare for our clients. We are able to look at prior year and 5-year comparative reports. You're able to look at the working analysis, the billing analysis, the analysis by timekeeper, the hourly rates that are being charged over the years, the trends, the number of hours that are being reported. We're able to look at all of these factors, and rather than just placing the pile of reports on the credenza of a partner, as I said, I really believe that it behooves each administrator or financial manager to prepare this executive summary, a 2 or a 3-page executive summary that shows the various trends and highlights these trends, and you can describe using bullet points the reasons why these trends have occurred. And by doing this, it will attract the attention of the managing partner or a financial partner or other members of the management committee to issues that are of critical importance. And if you're able to circulate this executive summary to all of the partners within the firm, then they will all be sensitized to the economics of the practice. And if it's obvious that there's been a decline in the number of billable hours, then someone should ask why, and what is it that we can do about it? If there's been an increase in the amount of receivables, why? What can we do to address this? And I think that the administrator should be the early warning signal of potential problems that may be occurring down the road. And rather than just placing this pile of 1-inch thick pile of financial reports, I believe that the administrator has the obligation and should identify the reasons for these problems and maybe what some of the solutions are. Now, the administrator may not be able to implement the solutions, but at least the administrator would definitely be able to highlight what needs to be done, what should be done, and then it's up to the managing partner and the management committee to take this information and utilize it. But you are the ones who have the opportunity to really convey this information. And this information is not only about billings and collections and revenue, but it also can affect the strategic thinking of a law firm, revenue by practice area, the number of new matters that have come into the firm, and various other pieces of information that can be so critical for the firm. And you're fortunate, using the Juris system, that this information is available. And it's the manner in which the administrators are able to utilize the information that I think is so critical. The information provided by Juris is excellent. The quality of the information, the accuracy of the information is excellent. But it's how the administrators utilize this. And this is up to each of you. I mentioned that I think that it's important for administrators to be able to question the status quo as to suggest alternative approaches within their firm's culture for enhancing productivity and profitability on substantive as well as administrative matters. And I also indicated that I think that this information can be obtained through these types of networking processes that you are attending and that you attend when you're back in your offices. But I know that there are a great many administrators for a variety of reasons who may be apprehensive to recommend certain changes, to recommend the initiation of changes. And when I ask them, well, why aren't they doing that? Because I've had prior discussions with managing partners. And the managing partners are telling me that the administrators are doing nicely, but they're doing the same thing that they've done for the last 5 or 10 years. And they're not being creative, they're not being innovative as far as giving us ideas of what we should be doing on the technology side or on some of the administrative activities. And when I speak to administrators, they tell me, well, I'm doing what I've done, and nobody has told me anything differently. I shouldn't be doing things differently. My feeling is that each administrator should have a position description. And I'm not being theoretical when I talk about this. A detailed position description that identifies what you perceive your role to be, your authority, your reporting relationships, the various functions that you are performing, that you're managing, that you're supervising. And from time to time, I think you should go to the managing partner and find out, how am I doing? How is everything working out? Am I doing what you're expecting? Am I supporting you the way in which you would like to be supported? The way you think I should be supporting you? Now, when I suggest this to a number of to administrators, their response is, listen, Joel, our partners are very strong personalities. And if they didn't like what I was doing, they would tell me. And if they're not telling me that I should change what I'm doing, then I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing. And to my way of thinking, this is not right. These administrators are making serious mistakes because they may not realize that they are doing things that might not be exactly within the expectations of what their performance would be from the eyes of the administrative partner, the managing partner, members of management committees. And I think that it's much easier and more important for an administrator to take the bull by the horns, if you will, and take the initiative to go to a managing partner to find out if what I'm doing is what you are expecting me to do in light of where the firm is today and where you intend for the firm to be headed in the future. And unless you have the willingness to do this, I think that the administrator is making a mistake. So I would encourage everyone to do this. I'm a big proponent of managing by walking the halls. I don't mean that you're going to walk around the hall for 2 or 3 hours a day. But I do think that it's important for an administrator to stop into attorneys' offices, to speak with them, make sure that everything is going along the way they are expecting it to go, speaking with administrative managers, ensuring that things are progressing the way in which they intended for this to go. Let me just give you some what I consider to be some practical tips about preparing for these challenges that I've identified. I think that it's absolutely imperative that administrators make certain that they understand the partner's expectations of the position. And the reason being that the expectations are not static. They are changing. And as the result, it is incumbent upon the administrator to ensure that he or she understands what these expectations are. I think that it's absolutely imperative for administrators to understand the priorities of the movers and the shakers within the firm. Now, it's true you have to provide quality service and timely service to all of the partners. But as you know, there are certain key partners in firms who are the movers and the shakers, and it becomes very important to ensure that you are satisfying, that you understand and are satisfying their priorities. I think that it is absolutely imperative that every administrative manager become proficient in financial management. If you have a CFO and the CFO is the person who's reporting to you, then I think you're fortunate. But you have to be able to understand what the CFO is telling you. You have to be able to understand the trends that are shown in these management reports so that you can discuss these intelligently with management. I think you must keep current about what other firms within and outside your practice area are doing about marketing, client relations, technology, and all of these other administrative functions that we've been discussing. I think that it is important for an administrator to anticipate rather than react. Now, you might be saying, you know, Joel, all of these things sound great. This is like the Boy Scout manual. You have to be prepared to do all of these things. But with everything that I have to do and the priorities that I have and the last-minute pressures that the partners are placing on me, it's very difficult for me to do these. Yes, I agree, but this is part of the job. This is the part of the job that you have, and if you want to succeed, these are things that you must do. I mentioned that I am a proponent of walking around the office. I feel that administrators should not isolate themselves. They should talk to the partners, they should talk to associates, they should talk to administrative personnel. If you have branch offices, make sure that you visit the branch offices. Let the branch offices know that you are their administrator also, not only the headquarters or the main office. Another factor that I think is very important, and it affects your image within the firm. And I think that it is imperative that each of you ensure that your assistant or your personal secretary or your shared secretary act in an efficient, effective, and professional manner. I think that how they take telephone messages, how they respond, the information, the insights that they have about the administrative issues affecting the firm are absolutely important, because all of these things will come back and affect and influence how partners perceive you as the manager. I think that it is important for administrators to use common sense. I think we would all agree that Murphy's Law is for real. I think that, as I've said several times, it's critical that we convey the appropriate attitude, the sense of urgency, caring, loyalty that partners are expecting. This is something that we must do, and we must be sensitive about doing these things. I think that it's appropriate that an administrator size up the situation before committing himself or herself to doing certain functions, to completing certain activities by certain dates, because partners will hold you to those dates. And if you're not able to provide an immediate response because you have to think through the timetable for when you can complete these tasks, then tell the partner that you will think about this and you will get back to this individual in a quick amount of time, in a short amount of time, with the idea that you will be able to provide that person with a timetable. I think that, as I've said previously, think and act as if you are a partner invested in the firm's success. Avoid partner power plays. There are times when it's very difficult for an administrator to avoid power plays, but I think that it's imperative that you do avoid these power plays. Remember, and I've said this 2 or 3 times earlier, that today's associate becomes tomorrow's partner. The junior partner becomes a mid-level partner. The mid-level partner becomes a senior partner. And if you have crossed or treated any of these attorneys in a somewhat shabby way, not intentionally, but because of pressures on you, it's unfortunate, but these partners, they never forget. They remember these things. And to the extent that they remember, they can hold these against you. I think that you must say what you mean and mean what you say, commit to certain timetables, do what is necessary. Obviously, you have to be discreet. If partners or administrative personnel tell you certain things in confidence, then you have to maintain these confidences. The challenge comes is when they tell you certain things in confidence and you know that what they're telling you will have some adverse effect on the law firm. What do you do about that? Well, this is a decision that each administrator has to make. I think that it becomes important for each administrator to be detached, to make objective decisions that are in the firm's best interest. And I also believe that the answer to most questions can be yes. I thank you very much for your attention. I hope that you found some of my comments to be interesting, informative, insightful, and I wish you a lot of good luck in terms of your managing and working with your firms and progressing them and utilizing the Juris systems. Thank you.